Dann gucken wir mal, ob wir vielleicht heute das Ende sehen. Oder ob es noch weitergeht. Evacuate the eye. Flotter is leaving with anyone who wishes to join them, but they'll need help if they want to leave before the flux hits. Wie viel Hitten wird denn da zu tun? Docking Access, das noch. Mehr anscheinend nicht. Okay. Ja, nehme ich mal einen Stabilizer. Ja, gehen wir noch schnell was essen. Mhm. Moment. Engage und Engineer. Okay, Engage gibt potenziell Energie. Nice. Ships from Ember Song will act as scouts and security for the evacuees. That means dismantling the docking access. Yeah. Okay. The docking access is little more than a shell. Everything that could have been pulled from its interior, every arm not used for docking, has been cut away. What remains is a Spartan void with a patchwork of flooring that allows movement. Piles of unusable material are tucked away in corners, but almost everything else has been cleared out. You haven't seen Peter since you last spoke, and now you're realizing that you probably never will. There are plans to be made, escapes to plot. The shadow of hearth to escape. On a cycle, the flotilla leaves, these ships will disperse too. The moons of Ember spinning out on different orbits. The chaos has become a quiet diligence now, as the time for departure is so near. Crews cross the axis from ship to ship at speed, bringing supplies or advice. Perhaps meeting up to discuss travel vectors in hushed tones, or to debate why they haven't left yet, and whether they should. Among these singer crews, recognizable for their specialist clothing and often shorn hats, you see the occasional refugee, a paying passenger, or a replacement engineer or pilot perhaps, come from the eye to seek fortune with the singers. Most of the crews have 2 or 3 of these additions, some more, and yet, and you can't help but wish that whatever reason brings them to throw their lot in with the singer crews, they will have safe passage. You feel a strange attachment to these citizens of the eye, setting out for the first time. And then one of them catches your eye, crossing the axis with a crew, carrying a large bag and a nervous look. Charter? You freeze for a second. What is she doing here? She glances around, feeling your eyes on her, and catches your eye. Her face brightens immediately. Sleeper, Thala mutters something to her crew and rushes over, dumping the large bag at your feet and embracing you without thinking. Good to see you. She pulls back. And you? She smiles, but then it quickly fades as she realizes the context in which you are meeting. She sheepishly glances at her bag. Sleeper? She pauses. She pauses again, folding her arms defensively. I'm going to the starboard belt. She waits for your response nervously. Why didn't you say? She sighs. Do you remember me mentioning my family, Sleeper? My brother? You think back to your gyro blurred conversations in the back of the Bantayan. He came here with me, with my family, when we were little, just after we left Chinza. She bites her lip. He left when we were both teenagers, jumped on some spacer crew heading to the starboard belt. She sighs. I'm an idiot. She shakes her head. And I'm going after him. She looks down, not sure what to add. That makes sense. She looks at you. It does? She laughs nervously. I'm not so sure anymore. I really don't know if it makes sense or if it's the right thing, but ever since I heard that was where the refugee flotilla was going, well, I couldn't stop thinking about him. How did you hear? I work in a bar. She grins. I've heard every bit of gossip this place has to offer. Speaking of the Bantayan, she meets your eye. Someone will have to run it. She leaves a long pause. I mean, I can ask Francis. He'd be happy to. Or one of the others. She blurts out. And of course, if you're living with the flotilla or someone else, it'd be totally okay. You wouldn't need to say yes. It's no pressure. It's fine. Whichever way, I was just thinking... I'm not sure. Tala nods. Sure. I mean, I just sprung it on you. But, she glances at the crew she was walking with, who are chatting a little way away. There's not exactly much time. So, considering that, she grabs the key hanging around her neck, the key to the Bantayan. Do you want to do it? Eigentlich nicht. No. Tala nods. I get it. She tucks the key around her neck inside her top. I always do this. Leave everything so late. Make decisions quickly so I can't change my mind. She kicks at her back. It's not on you. She looks up smiling. If you're going to leave, well, maybe we'll see each other out there. She looks out towards the stars. That'd be nice. Maybe once I find my brother. She stops herself. She looks back at you and smiles. I better be going. She nods at the crew nearby. Not a good start to keep my guys waiting. She lifts the bag onto her shoulder. She looks down the curve of the eye, towards the overlook. Thanks again, Sleeper, for everything you helped me with. She nods. I wouldn't have been able to leave if I hadn't made things work here. She adjusts her bag, the bag. Dad wouldn't have let me. See you out there. Smiles. Yeah, something like that. Then Tala turns, heading back to the crew, who will carry her to the starboard belt. You watch her go, and despite the departure, it is hard to feel sad about Tala. You know her energy will carry her forward, and you hope her brother is somewhere on that bright path. You imagine yourself leaving like Tala, unburdened, perhaps, or maybe carrying new burdens. It is hard to tell. Either way, it will be time to decide soon enough. Great point. Nice. Okay, das war's. 5 Tage. No active drives. Okay. Tatsächlich nur noch warten, anscheinend. Big slate chirps in your pocket. You take it out. A message. The connection is ready. Meet me at the Founders Gap, Greenway side, peak. You clench your jaw. It's time. Okay. You find Peak waiting near where you first met, at the entrance to the docking tunnel for the Founders Ferry. They are leaning beside the wall in the flickering light, and you realize now how different they look from when you first met. There's a darkness around their eyes, a sense of exhaustion to their pose, but also a solidity, a sense of purpose and self-knowledge. They look concrete, for want of a better word, solid. Sleeper. They spot you, and a small smile crosses their face. Glad you came. I wouldn't be anywhere else. Smile grows. Crunch time. They shake their head in disbelief. Let's go. The break in the connection is up ahead. They walk away from the docking tunnel into a ragged, half-crushed corridor that descends into darkness. They poke their slate, and a torch flicks on, lighting the way ahead. As they descend through the layers of the broken edge of the eye, Peak talks, filling the silence. I had to hunt all over this part of the eye to find the point where the connection was broken. They ran a hand along the buckled metal of the wall, stooping under the angled ceiling. This hole, the gap, got knocked in the eye when Solheim collapsed. It's impossible to tell who did it, but my guess is they tried to scuttle the eye. If Solheim couldn't keep hold of their fancy new station, well, no one could. Peak ducks through a fractured passageway with hanging wires like vines. So this place has always been on borrowed time. I've managed to weave together the old connections and run a new patch down to where the main line still runs through the remaining ribs of the rim. They smile. Just like keeping those old XPR platforms running, Ash would be proud if she'd bothered to help. As Peak goes quiet, the corridor opens out into a wider, twisted passage with compartments on either side thick with wiring. Here, this is the connection point. You can see where Peak has levered off a panel and hooked up a thick cable to the existing hardware. As thick as a tree trunk, it snakes off into the dark ahead, its yellow rings making it look like some huge and exotic serpent. What now? Now we make the connection. Peak pauses. You both stand there, staring at the point where the new cable meets the old one. The ends separate, fitted with multi-pin male and female connectors and braced inside a metal framework with a scissoring mechanism. Bring them together, seal them, and the greenway will be connected to the rest of the eye for the first time in decades. Peak shifts their weight onto one hip, pushing the hair out of their eyes. I feel like this should be more momentous, like there should be some ritual or ceremony. They pause, or someone should stop us from doing this crazy thing. Just wait. Peak nods. Pull the plaster off, right? Okay. They hold both sides of the supporting framework, ready to scissor it closed. Here we go. Peak wrenches the framework closed, and the connectors thunk together with a sound that echoes down the ruined corridor into the dark on both sides. Both you and Peak wait with bated breath, unsure what it is you're waiting for. Do you expect the eye to suddenly stop spinning, or lurch on its axis? For the power to go out, or a shock wave to run through the corridors of the rim? You meet Peak's eyes, and suddenly they burst out laughing. What are we waiting for? They put a hand to their forehead. I feel like we just planted a tree and are expecting it to burst out of the ground. They shake their head. But you feel it. You feel it flowing like a stream that has been released from a cave and rushes out into the sunlight, crystalline and clear. You swear you can hear it running in the wires, like water, like rain, like steam. It doesn't roar or rattle, but it rustles and drives there like liquid robots. Peak sees the look in your eyes and stops laughing. You can see it, can't you? You can't see it, not with your eyes at least, but it is everywhere, and now it is out. It can't be put back in, that much is clear. Imagine the rim of the eye like a sponge, like soil, soaking up the gardener and the chorus, the gaps filling with a burbling, constant, growing life. Peak stares at you, waiting for something, anything. Something has changed. Peak looks concerned. They close their eyes. They go to speak, but the words fail them. Suddenly, Peak's slate chirps. They jump and scramble for it, almost dropping it in the process. But when they stare at it, a look of confusion crosses their face. What happened? Peak's mouth falls open. It's Ash. They swallow. She's leaving. They look at you with panic. Before you can speak, They have turned away and are moving back up the passageway, back towards the entrance. Peek? They don't turn, don't respond, and you watch the silhouette, lit by their slate's torch, disappear rapidly around a corner. You take up the slate Peek gave you and turn on the torch. The wires all around look like pale roots in the harsh light, and you turn away from them. They are gardeners now. You work your way back through the corridors, retracing your steps. You imagine Peek panicked, running towards the cordon, realizing that their greatest fear has come to pass. You wonder if they will be able to persuade Ash to stay. If Ash is going, you think, then the flotilla must be leaving too. The thought makes you shiver in the darkness, and you push it away. You're not ready. You focus on avoiding the hanging wires, the low ceilings, and make your way back out into the lit corridors of the Founder's Ferry dock. Castor is waiting for you. He holds up his hands. No, Sleeper. No need to fear. He raises his eyebrows. I understand now. It was my mistake to try to force you. Miscalculation. Get lost. I understand you are angry. That is a reasonable reaction. He pushes his glasses up his nose. I only ask that you continue in the spirit of being reasonable and allow me to state my case. I won't hold you here, Sleeper. Castor stands to the side. But I wish to speak. Okay. You stop, giving Castor his opportunity. Castor nods. At first, I thought that, if you'll excuse the turn of phrase, taking possession of your particular talents was the opportunity. He smiles a broad smile. But you're more than that, and I understand that now. Your arrival on this station, your ability to touch the networks, this makes you the very definition of a wildcard. He touches the rim of his glasses. Senate stats, analysis, my analysis, we could never have accounted for you. The system, the Helion system, is about to experience a significant change, about to open up to Senate stats bailiffs, Conway's claimants, and every industry and element an active Khan channel brings. Yet this very cycle, you let another wildcard free, Gardner. I have to admit, this development makes me afraid, Sleeper. It makes me afraid what an intelligence like this will sacrifice to protect itself, what atrocities it might commit through madness. And yet, Castor's eyes glint. What a compelling object such an intelligence is. Let me protect you, mark you out, keep Senate Stat from eliminating by force or legal expediency you, as they will with every other squatter on this ring. Castor clasps their hands together. And in exchange, when Senate Stat comes for this place, you facilitate the handover. Calm the protocols, you give us the gardener. But, never? Castor takes off the glasses and polishes them. Disappointing? You begin to leave. As you approach, he speaks quietly, an urgent whisper. I do not wish to see you lost. You are of great value, if you ever want to see that realized. You push past him, ignoring him, and his voice fades. The last you see of him is a slow nod, perhaps a mark of resignation, or just another deferential gesture aimed at manipulating your response. It doesn't matter. Either way, you're done with him. You head towards the cordon, Peek and the flotilla in the forefront of your mind. There to pay. You arrive into chaos at the cordon. The final shuttles are leaving the ramshackle docks that have formed along the edge of the gap during the flotilla's stay. As they do, groups of evacuees push on board, hoping to be among the final people to escape from the eye. The fear The fear created by the Flux event became a series of rumors, and those rumors have driven many out of their homes. Others have staunchly doubled down on their position on the Eye, refusing to accept any gossip of a second collapse. You're unsure what to think. Is the collapse a certainty? Will Peak's actions this cycle have changed anything at all? You're tired of these questions and instead set out to look for your friends. You quickly spot Peak and Ash at the far side of the chaotic bay. You quickly make your way through the crowds, slipping between the gaps in the rushing evacuees, stepping over bags and luggage. Progress is slow, but as you approach, you can hear the voices over the crowd. You try to push closer, but there are many evacuees gathered around them and their shuttle. You have made your decision, Peak, and it puts you against me. Ash is standing with one foot on the boarding ramp, but Peak argues with her. The evacuees are eyeing them, eager to intervene but intimidated by Ash's evident strength and attitude. Ash, it doesn't have to be like this. Peak looks desperate, tear tracks already on their cheeks. We can find a way. Ash shakes her head. I've always protected you, Peak. I've taken you under my wing. But I understand that you're not mine to control. And you have chosen to be here and not with me, despite everything. I've chosen to stop running, he cries out in frustration. You can choose to stop running too. We can stay here and try to live. Don't you remember what it feels like to live, Ash? Ash turns away. I remember what it was like to live on Hawthorne. What it was like to be worried for your safety every cycle. To live under the control of my mother, of the administration. To work to maintain something that no one wanted, no one needed, so that our corporation could maintain a foothold in this system. You talk as if this place, in the very same system, is any different. What is there here but the same grind for other matters, for employers, administrators, for those who gain from our struggles? There may not be a corporation controlling the Eye, but there's control, there's power in action here. So what then? Peak shouts. You run from anyone or everyone who could ever be close to you in search of freedom? In search of some perfect place where no one has power over you? Peak is crying openly now. I want to be part of something, Ash. Even if it is broken and suffering, even if it cannot be free. Ash pauses and takes a deep breath. She nods, her eyes closed. This isn't Hawthorne anymore. We aren't tied by our childhood or by our shared need to escape. We're both just people in this system. She opens her eyes. I released you, Peak. You're free of me. Ash, please. They hold out a hand. There's a life here if you want it. Ash turns and smiles at Peak. Her eyes wet now too. Then you live it for me, Peak. I can't. And she climbs up the boarding ramp, the evacuees taking the chance to climb on board too. You watch as the shuttle closes its ramp, lifts off and leaves the bay. The crowds are dispersing now, as they get onto the shuttles, to say their goodbyes and move back into the main part of the cordon. You push past the last of them to reach Peak. Peak doesn't turn as you come closer. Sleeper. The Ash's gone. She chose to leave. Peak nods. I've known her my whole life. They wipe their face. But since we arrived, we've been going different directions. They turn to face you. I'll miss the Briar, but she'll serve Ash well, I know that. Sleeper. Shot takes you by surprise, and as you turn, you see Saul coming across the bay towards you. The last two shuttles loading up behind him. He reaches you, his suit hissing as he does. can't believe you'd make an old man run across this bay to get you. He pauses to take a breath. The singers have gone. They left at the start of the cycle. They broke away from the flotilla. Cool. You smile as you think of Tala, safely cradled within one of those singer ships on her way to the starboard belt, and hopefully a reunion with her brother. Godspeed, Tala. What are you smiling at? Soul interrupts your thoughts. They forced our hand. We have to leave now. Soul shakes his head. If we follow close enough behind, maybe they'll end up being our scouts anyway. I reckon any hostile spaces out there'll give 'em a wide berth. Pilgrim Seed will need a little time to make our way out of the cordon, but I'm heading back now to get her started. Thankfully, the step ships are sticking with us, so we'll be plenty well supplied for the journey to the belt. He pauses. Anyway, I didn't plot all the way over here to tell you that. So looks between you and Peak with a raised eyebrow. It's now or never, sleeper. I'm good to my word, and I kept the berth for you. But this is your last chance to take it. He scratches at his beard. Make a call. You glance out at the flotilla beyond the bay, beautiful in the light of Healy's sun. You think of the long journey to the starboard belt, of the people inside the pilgrim seat, of the possible futures that await. Then you think of the people here on the eye, of Peak beside you, of the small shifts yet to come, and the routines that ground you, of promises and possibilities. Ich hoffe, wir können beides machen. Aber ich gehe. You open your mouth to speak and realize this is the final time you will make this choice. You have to be sure. Ich meine, mich würde es schon interessieren, ob das mit dem, ob die Aktion mit Peak und dem Gärtner und so funktioniert. Aber ich habe auch ehrlich gesagt nicht wirklich Bock hier zu bleiben, wenn dann der Castor und dem seine Leute irgendwie herkommen und Kacke machen hier. You say the words, and they seem to carry your heart out of your mouth with them. You feel lightheaded, spinning, as if you tumbled out of the bay into open space. Soul nods. Come on then, let's go. You freeze for a moment, feeling Peak's presence beside you, and the moment to speak disappears. Good luck, Peak. Peak nods. You too. They manage to squeeze out the words before going silent. And then you're walking with Saul across the bay, almost without trying. Your step light and your head spinning. Saul grips your hand to help you up onto the shuttle ramp, and as he does, you feel the thick texture of his worn hands in great detail, as if you were touching some cratered landscape. You grip them tightly as you get on board. As the ramp begins to close, you see Peak watching at a distance, their face half covered by the hair. They raise a hand in farewell, and as they do, you see something in their expression that you can't quite place. A sense of determination, perhaps, or a compressed anger. Something that will drive them forward from this point on to a future you can believe will be better. And then the shuttle ramp closes, and the metal box you are inside rumbles and tilts. Some of the evacuees with you screech at the sudden movement, but they settle as the ship carves its way out of the bay towards the flotilla, towards whatever comes next. When you arrive there, you will find a berth, just as Saul promised, tucked in among hundreds of others, like a strange neighborhood of tiny flats. The communal canteens, the water supply, the farm stacks, these shared spaces will become the center of this new reality. The places where stories are shared, where signals and messages from the ships of the system and the eye itself are interpreted and discussed. You will find yourself unable to resist listening in to any conversation about the eye, any scrap of data or detail. This is how you will hear that another flux event hit not longer after the flotilla left, one that knocked out the power for the whole free spoke, they say, disconnecting the hub from the rim for many cycles, one that crippled many systems and cost many lives. But the flotilla, having departed with enough time, will outrun the flux, and you and all the evacuees will be thankful for this mercy. You will also hear of the strange growths that people started reporting around the station in the wake of this event, fungal crusts that pushed through pipes and wiring, rumors of the eye going wild and weakened. Neues Wort. Weakened. Fruchtbar. Fortpflanzungsfähig. Okay. Will travel quickly around the pilgrim seat, telling stories of a station of increasing unpredictability, prone to a seasonal rhythm of spore clouds and sudden growth spurts. As your long journey across the system becomes a dull routine of the same faces and places, you will delight to overhear that the eye persists despite everything, that crippled systems are rebooted and replaced, that new seasons of growth and decay bring with them a plenitude of resources and surprises. You will hear that Havenage's hardliners have fizzled out, losing their grip on the Havenage Council. In the wake, Helen will spearhead a series of reforms that will scale back Havenage's overreach, returning them to the caretaker role they had always intended to fulfill. And after a long time, you will find the stories of the eye become less, the signals and messages fewer, replaced instead by a new array of broadcasts, this time from Senate Stat, stating legal precedents and quoting deeds of ownership, staking a claim on the system. These messages will set the rumor mill of the pilgrim seat spinning, and you will rarely have a moment when you don't hear mention of that company and its claims. Occasionally on the long trip, you'll make a pilgrimage to the dust houses on a supply shuttle and gather clubheads from among the mulch. You'll talk with Aki as they are processed into stabilizer and hear of how the plants are changing, adapting, becoming ever intertwined in this new and unprecedented ecosystem. And then in the final part of your journey, as you reach the far parts of the system where a few signals travel and the starboard belt girds the system like a defensive ring, there will be distant reports of another fleet entering the system, under the banner of the all-too-familiar Conway extractions. By the time this happens, you and the evacuees will begin to discuss these events less and less, perhaps in the hope of avoiding being implicated in the coming corporate war. And finally, one cycle far from this moment, you will arrive at an asteroid port in the starboard belt, one you have yet to know, and you and all the evacuees will be released into it. In that moment, half a system of hundreds of cycles away from the eye, you will think back on your time there with equal sadness and fondness. And then you will step out of the pilgrim seat, never to return, and once more try to make a future for yourself that might be different to those false futures promised to you so many times. But for now, you remain on the shuttle, angling its way towards the base of the pilgrim seat, carrying the hopes of all who tremble quietly within it. And in this moment, you feel the eye release you, just as Ash released Peak, and it feels so good. Okay. Okay, gucken wir noch mal. Staying. I'm staying. You say the words, and the moment you do, the weight of it all seems to descend on you. You stumble a little and then stand straight, refusing to be crushed. You feel a tightness in your chest and a haze blurring your thoughts. Still not. Good luck, he says. You'll need it. He grips your shoulder and meets your eye. In the haze, his pitted and rough hand feels so real, so detailed that it grounds you. And then it is gone, and so goes with it, quickly moving to the waiting shuttle. As it does, you watch, unable to speak, your whole body pulsing. And then another hand falls on your shoulder, and it grounds you once more. You turn to see Peak's bright eyes. Let's go, sleeper. You nod, and seeing how unsteady you are on your feet, Peak puts an arm around you and steers you towards the entrance to the bay. As they do, hear the roar, feel the wind as the shuttle lifts off and angles toward the flotilla. You don't turn. Instead, you keep your head down and focus on each step. As you do, you feel Peak beside you, holding a little of your weight, and you holding a little of theirs. This is how it will be for many cycles after you both leave the bay and head back into the eye. You will both hold things for each other, remind each other of the choices you made, remind each other why it is important to keep going despite the moments when it seems impossible. You will keep each other going. That support will be vital when the second flux event hits the eye, when it knocks the entire free spoke off the power grid, making the whole station lurch with a sickening motion, when it cripples systems and corrupts processes, leading sections of the station to go dark or start venting oxygen, when holding on is all you can do, while the world seems to come apart around you. And yet, somehow, the eye will persist. Systems will resist total collapse in ways that will seem inexplicable to many, but to you and Peak, they will signal the awakening of a new force within the station. The new force will bring with it new challenges and new possibilities in equal measure. Strange growths will be reported all around the station in the wake of the flux event, fungal crusts pushing through pipes and wiring. The eye will go wild and fecund, becoming a station of increasing unpredictability, prone to a seasonal rhythm of spore clouds and sudden growth spurts. There will be a strange and unsettling beauty to this paradigm shift, as the greening of the station turns it from a corporate ruin to some altogether new assemblage of biological and mechanical structures. Reiko will take on this challenge with energy that seems impossible for her age, and until her final day, she will delight in the new mysteries the eye and its gardener produce. And as this new era consolidates around the station, you will find yourself back in the rhythm of odd jobs and loose contracts, working to keep the eye running and your own needs met. But now, many residents will call for you specifically, and before long, you'll be known as a fixer, a helper, a friend to many. And on occasion, after a long shift at the bunt yarn, you will hear the sound of the stray mewling, and you will crumble up some food and sit and watch the cat eat, as if it is the only thing in your world that matters. However, into all this newness, the bad old ways will still intrude. Then instead, frustrated by the AI's resilience, will begin to send more physical threats, and supply ships and traders will suddenly stop arriving, stopped by a blockade of corporate militia. Life on the Eye will be punctuated by wide-channel broadcasts from Senate-Stat, stating legal precedents and quoting deeds of ownership, staking a claim on the system. Meanwhile, Havenage's hardliners will fizzle out, losing their grip on the Havenage Council. In their wake, Helen will spearhead a series of reforms that will scale back Havenage's overreach, returning them to the caretaker role they had always intended to fulfill. As the cycles roll on and the threats gather, new broadcasts will join them, sent by convoy extractions, making counterclaims on assets within the Helion system. And many on the Eye will grow quiet, losing their appetite for debating these political machinations as they tilt inexorably towards a corporate war. And ever on the Eye will spin. Growing now in strange ways, haunted by strange new growths, and hosting cultures of increasing resilience. As the Helion system descends into crisis, you will find comfort in the fungal patterns, the familiar conversations, the spices, and the smells that will accumulate around you as your body continues its unavoidable decay. They settle around you like veil, and in time it will be impossible to see the Eye without seeing its many variants and versions, pasts and potential futures. And this masking of the world will mark your approaching end. And one cycle far from now, that accumulation of memories, of tastes, of people and places and moments will be the last thing you let go of. But for now, there's only you and Peak, arms around each other, walking slowly out of the bay. Two figures born of crippled systems, linked together, continuing despite your origins. And in this frozen moment, you focus on only the next step, because that is the only way you've learned to persist. And to persist is to believe that a future, any future at all, is possible. Okay. Damit sind wir fertig mit Citizen Sleeper. Ja. Kleines Fazit zum Spiel. Hat mir sehr gut schon gefallen. Ja, ich weiß nicht genau, wie schwierig sozusagen das werden könnte. Aber so insgesamt hatte ich irgendwie schon das Gefühl, für alles genug Zeit zu haben. Nie irgendwie großartig Gefahr zu laufen, irgendwie Game Over zu gehen. Mal kurz. Start Game ist einfach nur, okay, also Schwierigkeitsstufe selbst gibt's jetzt nicht. Ja, dementsprechend muss ich sagen, war es ein bisschen zu, also ja, also es war irgendwie nicht wirklich eine, ja, Gefahr großartig da. Dementsprechend war halt, ja, das Gameplay selbst auch ja, ja, lass ich mal auf. Dementsprechend selbst war halt, ja, Gameplay ganz interessant. Ziemlich cool mit den Würfeln und so weiter, aber halt, ja, nicht gut gebalanced, finde ich. Also es war zu einfach, immer genau das Ergebnis zu bekommen, das man möchte. Fand ich, fand ich die Herangehensweise von Disco Elysium ein bisschen besser irgendwie. Also halt ein bisschen, hat halt besser zum Rollenspielen irgendwie besser gepasst. Aber ja, so grundsätzlich die Story war sehr interessant. War auch insgesamt nicht zu kompliziert geschrieben. Also es war für mich persönlich alles relativ gut verständlich. Manchmal hat es ein bisschen, hat's 2, 3 Sätze gedauert, aber dann habe ich recht gut verstanden, wie die Situation halt was gerade beschrieben wurde und so weiter. Ja, von der Länge her finde ich, war es für meinen Geschmack ein bisschen zu lang. Also diese Bonus-Episoden mit den Flüchtlingen und so weiter waren insgesamt alle waren interessant. Gameplay-mäßig her, wo da auch tatsächlich auch ein Zeitlimit und so weiter war. War gut. Definitiv ja, definitiv hat so in der Hauptstory sozusagen irgendwie schon gefehlt. Ja, also insgesamt an sich war es gut, bloß ich persönlich war sozusagen satt. Also das, die Bonus-Episoden, die haben mich übersättigt irgendwie. Also ich war mit der Länge, wie das Hauptspiel an sich war, mit den ganzen verschiedenen Storylines und so weiter, war für mich persönlich perfekte Länge. Absolut zufrieden und halt, ja, satt von dem ganzen Zeug. Und ja, jetzt das Bonuszeug hätte ich jetzt nicht unbedingt gebraucht. Auch wenn's, also ich fand es trotzdem halt interessant und gut. Und die Themen, die da behandelt wurden, auch äh, sehr tiefgreifend und gut behandelt und so. Aber ja, einfach irgendwie zu viel dann. Äh, weiß. Ich weiß nicht, ob ich es irgendwie besser gefunden hätte, wenn ich das Spiel sozusagen zum Release gespielt hätte und dann halt auf die weiteren Episoden gewartet hätte, ob das besser oder schlechter vielleicht sogar gewesen wäre. Äh, besser halt im Sinne, nicht alles auf einmal zu haben, aber schlechter halt im Sinne von drauf warten zu müssen, bis die nächste Episode rauskommt und dann halt vielleicht Interesse zu verlieren in der Zeit oder so. Äh, ja. Ansonsten, so vom Hauptspiel, die ganzen Storylines waren waren ganz gut. Ein paar wenige fand ich so ein bisschen weiß nicht, schwach irgendwie oder halt die war, ja, haben sich eben mehr wie eine Nebengeschichte angefühlt, als wie irgendwie eine Hauptstory, in der mein Charakter auch aktiver Teil von dem Ganzen war. Ähm, ja, aber so insgesamt, das führen im Endeffekt Visual Novel Spiel mit leichten Gameplay-Elementen und so weiter, fand ich's schon sehr, sehr gut. Also, ja, hat mir insgesamt doch einige persönliche Probleme einfach insgesamt doch sehr gut gefallen. Und ja, also würde grundsätzlich empfehlen für Leute, äh, die an sich halt nichts dagegen haben, viel zu lesen oder hauptsächlich halt zu lesen und nicht groß Gameplay-mäßig was erwarten. Und halt, ja. Ähm, das Setting selbst, also hat mich am Anfang ein bisschen abgeschreckt, weil ich persönlich nicht so großer Science-Fiction-Fan oder so bin. Also ich habe an sich jetzt nicht unbedingt was gegen das Genre, aber es interessiert mich jetzt auch nicht so sehr. Aber die, die Science-Fiction-Elemente, die jetzt in dem Spiel drin waren, also es war jetzt nicht so hard Science Fiction, nicht so extrem rein und halt auch nicht so, dass der ständig und dauernd irgendwie neue, andere, komische, neu geschaffene Begriffe und sonst was um die Ohren gehauen bekommst. So, also das hat so in meinen Augen ganz gut gemacht. Also es ist nicht zu tief in dieses Science-Fiction-Zeug reingegangen, sondern halt nur so weit, wie es halt nötig war, um eine interessante Geschichte zu erzählen. Und, äh, und um die Welt zu aufzubauen und zu erklären und so. Und die eigentlichen Stories an sich, die waren dann, gingen dann halt von dem Science Fiction ein bisschen halt weg und haben mehr mit persönlichen Themen und so weiter zu tun gehabt, die so behandelt, ohne dass, ja, dass das groß halt ähm, zu nerdy einfach wurde. Also das hat das Spiel auch ganz gut gemacht, finde ich. Ja, ansonsten Musik war gut, war nicht zu aufdringlich, hat aber immer ganz gut gepasst, wo Musik zu hören war. Also das haben sie gut gemacht. Und ja. Ansonsten, der einzige negative Punkt, der mir jetzt noch gerade so einfällt, ist das Hinkommen zu manchen Punkten. Also halt das physische ähm, Mausrad scrollen und so weiter. Heißt halt, wenn du jetzt zum Beispiel halt irgendwie unten bei dem Riesenschiff gearbeitet hattest und wolltest irgendwie was oben im Greenway machen, da halt hin zu scrollen war ein bisschen nervig. Da wäre grundsätzlich einfach irgendwie die Möglichkeit, die Scrollgeschwindigkeit genauer einzustellen. Wäre schön, das einfach schneller zu machen bei Bedarf. Ich schau gerade noch mal kurz rein. Nicht, dass ich mich jetzt beschwer über was, das da drin ist. Ah, gibt's. Okay, mal gucken. Fast. Ja, okay, Fast ist besser, aber ja doch. Okay, ist gut. Gut, dann nehme ich den Kritikpunkt zurück. Das ist meine Schuld dann, dass ich nicht genauer geschaut habe. Ja, ja, das reicht vollkommen. Absolut in Ordnung. Äh, Musik, Ambient, Text. Ja, okay. Ja, okay. Also dann den Kritikpunkt zurück. Mein, mein Fehler. Äh, ja. Nee, ansonsten. Ja, war gut. Ähm, Wie gesagt, also für Leute, die nichts dagegen haben, eine Geschichte, so ein Erlebnis hauptsächlich zu lesen, kann ich das Spiel definitiv sehr empfehlen. Ja, sehr gut. Sehr gut.